Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today is Thursday, May 12th, 2022 for the Lee County TDC meeting. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cecil Pendergrass.
Here.
Mayor Holly Smith.
Here.
Tony Lappy.
Here.
Jay Johnson.
Here.
Robert Wells.
Here.
Bill Wachulis. Councilwoman Gloria Tate.
Here.
Councilman Larry Kiesel.
Here.
Councilman Mike Gibson.
Here.
Councilman Jim Adderall.
Here.
Fran Myers, Councilwoman Darla Baum, and Ryan Kramer are excused. We do have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. And before we get started on the agenda, I want to point out this is a very special day here in Lee County. Today is Tamara Pygott's birthday. And wish Tamara the bestest and hope she has a great day. I'm surprised you didn't take the day off today.
I don't think we're allowed to do that. If it's a TDC meeting, I think I'm supposed to be here, right? So
I thought it was a county paid holiday.
should be probably.
It should be we should have a Tamara day. What do y'all think?
It's a little early for cake, right?
29 all over again, huh?
Sure.
Well, happy birthday.
You know what? You're just one day older every day, right? That's the way it works.
Well, I'm sure Steve and you have a great night tonight.
will.
So thank you again
Absolutely.
and happy birthday.
Thank you
Wanna
very
celebrate
much.
that. Okay, if I could have approval of the April 14th, 2022 TDC minute meetings.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any discussion? Any public comment on the minutes? Any objection? No objection. We'll move on to public to be heard. Any public comment at this time? Any public comment? Let's come to the podium, state your name.
Good morning, all. Happy birthday, Tamara. My name is Megan Dunphy with Luminary Hotel and Calusa Sound Convention Center. Just want to invite everyone. We're excited to say the grand opening of the Calusa Sound Amphitheater will be May 25th. We'll get started about 5. Program starts at 5:30, followed by a band to celebrate the evening. So I have some invitations here. I'll leave on the front table. Would love to see everyone there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll move to municipalities be heard. Any municipalities be heard? Councilwoman Tate, you're going to just go ahead and speak from there. It's good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Happy birthday, Tamara. I wanted to thank the TDC members and staff that came out. We had 15 utility boxes, and Cape Coral doesn't sound exciting with utilities. Look really amazing. It's now new art in downtown, and it looks really, really great. And I want to invite you all to June 10th. We are going to be having the unveiling of our artwork at the Roundabout at 47th Terrace and Vincennes. So we are definitely trying to dress up our city and invite more people down. A couple of the other things I wanted to tell you is we got our first arborist, so trees and landscaping are going to improve in Cape Coral. And finally, Coral Oaks Golf Course, we just recently finished a $500,000 asphalt paving program, and we did our cart pass. So we're getting ready for the next season coming up. Thank you.
Great. Any other cities or municipalities like to be heard at this time? Okay. I'd also like to recognize Jay Johnson. We have our newest member of the TD Council here. So thank you for your stepping up to the plate. I was happy to appoint Jay, I guess, 2 weeks ago. With Colleen leaving us, so we had an opening there. So Jay, thank you for your interest and thanks for being involved.
Thank you. Looking forward to being part of the discussions.
Also, Clerk of Court Kevin Carnes is here this morning, and also Ben Siegel from the airport. If we may have anything for the airport this morning too. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the report of the Executive Director. Birthday girl.
Good morning. Thank you for the birthday wishes, and we can stop now. It's all good. I'm having a happy birthday.
Oh no, we just started.
Good news to report. I wish I had this to report every month. $10.9 million in bed tax revenue in March. Obviously the largest month of bed tax collection in the history of this organization. And I was looking back when I started with the Bureau in 2000, our FY 2000 collection was $10.1 million. And in 1 month we collected more. Now, I will add, it was a 3% collection, but 10.1 was the whole year. Now just 10.9 in a single month. It's just unbelievable to me. That's a 28.8% increase over 21. And for the year, we are at 39.8 million. That's 43.9% over the same period in fiscal year 21. So significant collections for the first half of the year. In terms of the STAR report, occupancy at 85%, ADR at $314, almost $315, RevPAR at $267.52. All of those, of course, increases across the board. Most significantly, we're seeing, the increase on rate. Obviously, hotels are making up for some of those inflationary expenses, but also it's some of the bounce back as a result of the pandemic. But it's good to see the occupancy up as well. Key data dashboard from our vacation rental side, occupancy at 92%. Average daily rate at $362 and RevPAR at $334. As we've talked about many times, the vacation rentals continue to be strong. Not to miss on the good month, the passenger traffic at the airport up 30% at 1.5 million. And for the calendar year to date, they're at 3.7 million, a 44% increase over this same period last year, which of course was a record year. With that, before I bring up Joseph, I have a couple of things I want to share with you. First, we have a new communications director. You'll remember a couple of months ago, Francesca announced that, well, actually a little over a month ago, Francesca announced that she was leaving, and Ray Saraceno, who you may remember, he was with us for a little while and then went over and helped out during the pandemic at county administration in the communications department. He's back and he's going to be our communications director. So please welcome back Ray. He's a familiar face, but. And we have a new account rep for MMGY in the area, and her name is Katie Verano, and Katie is standing in the back of the room, so if you'll make eye contact with her so that when you see her at a future meeting, you can connect with her. We're real excited to have, again, someone here in the area that we can work so closely with, so it's fantastic for us. And then last but not least, and this is so I don't forget on your spot, is a printout of the Save the Date for Governor's Conference at the newly renovated Boca Raton Resort and Spa across the state. And I know we'll all want to take advantage of Governor's Conference, so please be sure to get that on your calendars. All right, Joseph, I'm going to turn it over to you for more good news.
Right. Well, again, my name is Joseph St. Germain. I'm the president of Down St. Germain Research. Good to see some very familiar faces, some new faces, and we're happy to kind of give you an overview of what your visitors look like for January through March 2022. Just as a reminder, this report is kind of a compilation of some of an occupancy study that we do, but some of the STR and key data numbers that you just saw, and then also over 1,000 interviews that we did with your visitors across the county in January through March 2022. The overall things, number one, you're going to see some great increases in your metrics, especially in terms of spend. There's still your visitor with this higher ADR is spending a lot more money. And we noticed for really bullets 2, 3, and 4 are related to marketing in our mind. One of the things that we noticed is we had more of your visitors considered other destinations before finally choosing Fort Myers. So it's good news that they chose Fort Myers, but as the world is reopening, and Florida's been open for a minute, but not the Northeast and not the Midwest to a lesser extent, there appears to be, from the data that we see here and some other places, there's a little bit of a reset where people are kind of just looking at all the options before making their decisions. So along those lines, people notice your marketing more often, and they were more likely to be first-time visitors this time around. Again, all that's good news, but it is a note as to being like the world out there in terms of the marketing and fighting for those visitors is going to be more and more as we go on. And then as we looked at the profile itself, we saw that your visitors were older, higher incomes, a lot of ways, it was kind of a return to what your visitor profile looked before the pandemic, as we got a lot of different people from a lot of different places. Let's look at the big numbers. Again, as Tamara mentioned, more good news. Compared to 2021, visitation was up almost, or a little bit over 23%. More room nights and spending was up 40%. You compare that to 2020, which is an almost totally COVID-free quarter. Visitation was about the same, but again, that spending is up. And then we actually even looked back to 2019, the last totally COVID-free January through March. All these metrics are up, with the exception of in January of 2019, you had more visitors, but a lot of those were more day trippers and a lot more people staying with friends and relatives. So you had, compared to 19, you had less number of visitors, but they're spending more money and they're spending more nights in hotel rooms and condos and things of that nature, as opposed to staying with Aunt Suzanne or visiting for the day. This is kind of in line with some of the numbers that you just saw for October. Occupancy in January through March, 90%, up 14%. ADR very strong across all your different property types, and RevPAR up nearly 50% year over year. I'll just say thank you to everyone in this room. It's a lot easier to give these presentations when the numbers are up as opposed to the last couple of years. So thank you, great job. As we look at the visitor itself, for those who are seeing some of these for the first time, we like to walk through the visitor journey. What do they do before they got here? What do they look like? How was their experience? And then what do they do? And for what it's worth, this isn't every single data point. We just want to give you an overview of some of the larger data points. We saw a longer travel planning cycle, getting back to, again, a more pre-pandemic in terms of travel planning. You know, a couple months is around the norm of that travel planning cycle. You may recall, especially early in the pandemic, we saw a much shorter travel planning cycle. As I mentioned earlier, almost 2 in 5 of your visitors considered other destinations. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means you're going to have to fight for them a little bit more. And granted, this is the first quarter that we've seen this. One quarter does not make a trend, but it's something to pay attention to as we move forward. Why did they visit? Vacation and the beach were number one. And along with that, we also saw increases of people from the Northeast and the Midwest. As a person who grew up in Minnesota, moved to Florida, and decided I'm not going back home, I understand that thought process, particularly in January through March. But this was particularly important as just visitors in the Midwest and Northeast were more comfortable traveling, which they may not have been last January through March, because January through March 2021, we weren't fully vaccinated and things of that nature, which isn't important for everyone, but it was important for a lot of people before they'd return to traveling. Also, as I mentioned earlier, recall of promotions was up. Almost half of your visitors recalled a promotion. That was 35% last quarter. We don't see jumps that high that often. So your marketing by folks in the area is being seen largely on the internet, social media, and also travelers' reviews and blogs. Again, this is that, I think overall as people make these decisions moving forward, they're going to take in more options, but they're also going to look more at the marketing that you do on a day-to-day basis. You saw that Tamara put up the numbers for SRQ. About 3 and 4 year visitors flew to the area. About 3 and 5 directly into our RSW. In terms of the profile, this is something that we take from our visitor tracking, but we're also incorporating some of the arrivalist data this year to get a better sense of it. We saw increases, again, of visitors from the Midwest and the Northeast specifically, and it was great to see a return of the international visitor, even though it wasn't as high, the international percentage wasn't as high as what we saw in 2019 in the pre-pandemic levels, but we did see a significant increase in that regard. The top origin markets, places that are cold. Minneapolis, St. Paul, New York City, Chicago, Detroit. If you've been in those cities in January through March, you understand why being here is much better. The average travel party is about 3.5 people, so about 1 in 4 had children. So that also means you had a significant number traveling with, so families are the number one way to travel, then couples, but you also had significant numbers of people traveling with friends and that kind of thing, or other couples. In terms of the experience themselves, most of your visitors are staying in a vacation rental, condo, or in a hotel, motel, or resort. But, you know, even though I mentioned there's fewer people staying with friends and relatives, still about 1 in 4 are either staying in their second home or staying with friends and relatives. So that's not a not significant portion of your visitor. In January through March, we tend to see a longer length of stay where the average was about 8.8 nights because you're kind of mixing in some folks who are going on vacation with other folks who may be here, snowbirds, things of that nature, who are staying a longer period of time. 35% were first-time visitors, and that is up from 27% last year. So again, the visitor tracking doesn't always put these things together, but when we saw more people noticing your advertising, we saw more people visiting for the first time, it would lead me to believe that your advertising is working. But you still do have a loyal visitor. Almost 1 in 5 have visited more than 10 times. What do they do when they're here? Especially from January through March, beach is still number 1, relaxing and unwinding and dining. One of the things with beaches and relaxing and unwinding, a lot of people, when we look at that data set, they select both of those things. You know, they relax and unwind, and how do they do it? A lot of them do it at the beach. How did you do? What's your grade? Did they like their trip? 95% are likely to recommend the area, 91% are likely to return, and 3 in 5 are likely to return next year. Those numbers, to give you some context, are good. Could they be better? Sure. But they're also, one of the things, these are good numbers, particularly when you take into account the high ADRs, numbers that you really haven't seen before. The one thing with high ADRs come higher expectations. So it's harder to reach these goals when you do it, especially at a time, and I don't know how each and everyone's individual properties are working, but in every market that we work in, we know workforce is still an issue in many places. So with a high ADR, and which increases expectations, and a workforce that maybe isn't what you're accustomed to, these numbers are good. In the global scheme of things, those are things that could improve, but in reality, given what you're dealing with, these are great numbers. 96% were satisfied or very satisfied, 3 in 5 being very satisfied. We point out the very satisfied because those are the people who are more likely to spread word of mouth. While the 96% is a great number, people were happy, they're more likely to return, it's those 58% are more likely to tell their friends and their family about how great of a time they had in your area. 92% satisfied or very satisfied with customer service, with 55% being very satisfied. Again, giving workforce issues, those are good numbers. If there were workforce issues, I'd say those are solid. But given all that, to keep it up to speed, that's very good. And then 34% said their paid accommodations exceeded their expectations. That's a little bit of a dip, but getting back to what I said earlier, with the ADRs being higher, the expectations are a little bit higher, so the ability to exceed their expectations just becomes more difficult. That's not an excuse, it's just the reality of the situation. In terms of how they describe the area, it's a beautiful destination for the whole family, a place to relax and enjoy the sounds of the clear blue water and gorgeous white sand. The beaches are perfect, soft and clean. We enjoyed trying the different beaches and finding shells. I would describe it as a good place to go for a relaxing trip. If you're looking for a calm place to get out and go on a trip to reset from a chaotic lifestyle. These are quotes directly from your visitors. You know, especially when you think about the lifestyle here anywhere in the area compared to, say, New York City or Chicago, it's a place where they can really kind of slow down. And then finally, my last couple slides, this is how it looked January through March. How does it look moving forward? April through June, not as optimistic as last year, but there's more optimism or at least stability as opposed to people saying bookings are down. As we look 6 months in advance, very similar to what we saw last year. Again, general optimism. There's more people saying bookings are up than down. At the same time, it's not gangbusters like it's been, and especially in a time where the economy with gas and prices and stuff like that, it's going to be interesting to see how this looks in a couple months from now. But this is how it looks now. Positive, not over the moon, but generally positive, especially if you're coming off some record-setting times and you're saying it's still going to be up, so that's a general positive. So, you know, that's just a brief overview of what 1,000 people told us about you over the course of a year or over the course of a quarter. At the same time, I do want to open it up to any questions anyone may have.
Great. Any questions for Joseph? Yes, sir.
I just had a question regarding the accommodations. It's got 40% condo vacation rental, 32% hotel, motel, resort, bed and breakfast. Did you do any research as to what impacts a visitor's decision as to which they choose between those two options?
No, that's not a part of this study. That is something that we could definitely do. That would be probably more in depth in terms of, with a visitor tracking study, you have X amount of time, so we need to prioritize. But that is something that we could look into.
Thank you.
Councilman, just to add a little bit to that, we've seen vacation rentals, the demand for vacation rentals really increase during the pandemic. I think, the desire to, sort of contain the property, so to speak, be able to stay contained in the property. The numbers have just been soaring. I know I have Tyler here from Key Data. I think he would tell you that they're seeing, occupancy increases kind of across the board in vacation rentals. It's been very popular. Of course, we have a lot of them here. And as you know, more people are buying places and making them vacation rentals in the area. Our number of vacation rentals has really increased. So
We see that as well, and I'm just curious if there's been any sort of data gathered as to what factors into those decisions for the visitor. What are the significant factors, and it allows various constituencies then to respond accordingly.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with party size. Bill, I mean, you have both, so.
I was going to say, I think the big driver is you've got families that have been separated for so long that they're actually now traveling together, and they need the larger accommodations. So I think vacation rentals benefiting from that.
I think it's convenience as well. When you get to come and you don't have to worry about going out for dinner every night. We've got an extended stay with kitchens and we've got one without. And when we look at and ask people that question, it's convenience. We just want to be in one place. You got your own pool, you got your own cooking facilities, and this is just going to continue to grow in Southwest Florida.
Yeah. And in fairness, we're not seeing a dip in occupancy in the hotels. Both are doing well, but vacation rentals have been really strong, come on stronger during the pandemic. I think it's just people really like the idea. We don't have to go out to eat. We can cook here. We can bring the whole family. We can all be together in one unit, so to speak.
And I don't disagree, but that's sort of anecdotal. I'm curious if there's a way to get some granular data as to what are the various factors, so you can see the data itself versus just the anecdotal. Because I don't disagree with anything anybody said. We see it as well, but I wonder if there's a way to dig a little deeper, so then you can see some actual data that helps drive that decision. Just a thought.
And for what it's worth, now that I'm thinking about it, we did a study, this was months ago, so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, with a partnership with Key Data about vacation rentals, not just in your area, but across the state of Florida. And there were a couple questions in there as to why did you choose a hotel? Why did you choose condo? And again, that wouldn't necessarily be specific to you, because it was statewide, but it's just a white paper that we put together, and that's something that I can share with Tamara, and she can kind of send it along. Again, it isn't a perfect study for you, but at least it has some hard data and some things of that nature, because that was based on a survey that we did and married that with some of the key data insights that we saw across the state. So that's something we can share.
Very good. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, can you track it by individual sales tax for single-family homes compared to hotels and motels and condominiums possibly? And the other thing is it's a very political hot potato. Any day that variance as to whether you're going to be able to rent your single-family home out is likely to change depending on who's in office.
We do not have that data broken down that way. We know unit size. Tyler, I don't want to misspeak, but I don't know that it's home versus condo, or we have like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom.
Yes, we have the unit type, so the type of accommodation, number of bedrooms, number of sleeps.
Yeah, so probably the 3-bedroom and up would represent single-family homes more than condos and more than hotel and motel.
Yeah, but I don't know that, we don't have specifically one category, condo, one category, single-family home.
Rob had a question.
We've been talking a lot about the other choices people have, opening up Caribbean, Europe, cruises, all that stuff. And I guess the flip side would be, a lot of people are saying, but then Europe's coming here. Have we done any study to see what does that mean? So how much could be coming here if Europe's opening up? We start seeing more Europeans. Is that a number that is going to be, that will help counter some of this other option options, and you're seeing it because people are now looking at other places to go, whereas a year ago, they were just showing up here, right? Anybody got a number of what that would mean?
I think it's too soon to say, Rob. I mean, it's all going to depend on air service availability, right? I mean, how many airplanes are going to be coming between, those key markets and Florida or South Florida, so to speak. But we are hearing good demand numbers from Germany, the UK. We just had a webinar with Sojourn and Expedia, and I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to that. It's posted on our website. I'll send it out to each of you, but there was a lot of talk about what they're seeing in terms of demand from the international markets. But I think it would be very difficult to say this is going to replace that, But you remember that pent-up demand last summer? That's what you're going to see from Europe this summer. If they can get here, that's the big if, how they get here, they will come. But I think it would be a bit too soon to say these are the numbers. We're going to be able to judge what those numbers look like.
Yeah, and from everything we'd seen, I'd agree with what Tamara said. I mean, it's going to help replace some of that pent-up demand that we saw domestic last year. To give you, you're up this and now international, there isn't enough data within this to kind of look at it. I mean, the good news is we'll be able to document it as it goes, but it doesn't have much predictive power. But everything that Tam said is really what we've been seeing with not only our data in this area, other places, but in just secondary research, because I'm a nerd and I read a lot of other stuff as well. So it's long.
But the webinar we did this week, it definitely had some data in it to show bookings out. Most of it went through September. I think one set of it was through September and one set was through the end of the year. So I'll get that for you, Rob. I mean, that's just two sources, but directionally it's in the right direction in terms of seeing international up.
Yeah, on the satisfaction part, if you obviously do work in other counties and other areas, how would you rate us in terms of where we are with them and other places? Monroe County or these other places like that?
I mean, the reason as I went through there, I focused a little bit more on your average daily rate than I normally do, because that in terms of how happiness is a function of expectation in a lot of different ways. So that's why I focus on your ADR, because they are good. As we look, I won't say any specific areas, but those numbers are stronger than we see in a lot of areas. There were a couple spots that were lower, but I think it was a function of that high daily rate. So, I mean, that's why I kind of, as a whole, in a vacuum, there's places to grow, but given how much things cost right now, I don't know if, and the workforce, I don't know if you can do much better than you did. I never want to say you can't do better, because you always can, but those are strong compared to what we've seen, especially when you take into account the average daily rate. And we work with a lot of counties, some that are very similar to your rate, some are higher, but as you can imagine, there's a lot that are significantly lower, particularly comparing January through March, your January through March through their January through March. So overall good places to grow, especially good when you consider the rate and workforce.
And product has something to do with that,
yes,
too. I mean, you look at, I'm always following the competition. Sarasota built a bunch of new hotels the last, 6 or 7 years, 8 years. And, that product is performing very well because it's very new product. So, you're going to see really high satisfaction with with that type of product offering. So I think, it's an evolution a little bit, but, and a friendly reminder, guest first classes, the schedule has been announced, and tomorrow is the registration date. I believe we open registration, so if you're looking for a way to get your customers trained, your employees trained in good customer service, there is no better program or cheaper one that you can partake in, free guest first training.
Just one last follow-up as we're looking at the growth of short-term rentals and so forth. I'm curious, has there been any research done with respect to the impact on short-term rentals on workforce housing? We hear it anecdotally and see it in Fort Myers Beach, and I assume throughout Lee County. I'm curious if there's any research been done because with the growth of short-term rentals, it seems like there's less and less workforce housing available. I just was curious if there was any data on that.
Hearing more and more of that. We do not have any data on that, but I have heard that from other areas, and I think there has been some research in some other areas. Joseph, are you familiar with any studies in Florida?
I don't have any off the top of my head, and I don't know any Florida-specific research, but from someone who works not only in the state of Florida, but Maine and a few other areas, that has become, the discussion on workforce has shifted a bit more towards like, that's great, I can hire people now, but I don't have any place to put them. So that is becoming a larger and larger conversation everywhere we go. In fact, I think even in Collier County at some point next week, they're having a forum about affordable housing specifically for workforce development. So I don't know, again, I don't know what the data is off the top of my head, but I know it's becoming, I'm hearing that, you know, it's anecdotal stuff, but when you hear it everywhere, you know it's a big thing, and then the research is probably going to follow behind it. There's some out there, I would just need to find it, pretty much.
I think the county, I know the county's working on workforce housing. I know we as the city of Sanibel, I mean, our own municipalities have to be looking at that to see what we can do. I can tell you in the city of Sanibel, probably a majority of the homes that used to be annual rentals that would be considered a step-in rental are now being vacation rentals. Somebody can make more in doing that. So, you know, that's a real issue that we're all facing. And I know the legislature is going to be tackling. Senator Pasadomo has said, you know, this is a priority to see, we've got the people that want to come, but how do we house them? And how can we work on that as a state and, you know, local communities to foster workforce housing? Because that's one of the main issues. Insurance and workforce housings are the two biggies that we're looking at.
I would say, Madam Mayor, we are currently trying to model what Sanibel has done with respect to helping in the workforce housing front. We've just created a revenue stream, and we're actually looking to Sanibel to try to figure out how to do it and how to be helpful.
It's a challenge because that means finding land.
Yep.
And then being able to have, you know, the nonprofit, if you have one established, to be able to build those like we have. But, you know, we started that back in the 70s.
And then whose backyard you're going to put it in. So we had Rob, and then Pam's next. We had Rob. Did you have a question? Then
yeah, and just going back to this because it's such an important topic for us, especially for long-term business in Lee County. Back to the customer satisfaction. I think a big part of it is I thought there was somewhat of a seismic shift this last couple of years. You're seeing guests from different areas than you normally see them. I'm looking at like occupancy and rates in places they might have gone in the past over $500 a night. So I think some of those people ended up coming to our area. I don't know if other people can, you know, have seen the same thing, or if you're seeing or you'd agree. That means that you've got somebody that's relatively new, and maybe this wasn't, if we could do well enough to get a number of those people to start coming here more, then I think it was this opportunity for us to just gain a whole bunch of new clients that otherwise we never interfaced with before. And that's probably reflected a little bit in that customer satisfaction survey.
It is, and then also along those lines, it's, as I mentioned earlier, people are just considering more places, and that's not just here, we're seeing it in a lot of different places. So it is an opportunity, and, you know, again, I'll touch base that you had more first-time visitors than we've seen most January through Marches than you've seen. So there is data that supports that. So, I mean, that's good to see, but it's also a challenge for someone who comes here for the first time. They don't know their restaurants they like to go to yet. They don't know the activities they like to do all the time yet. So it's harder to keep those levels up when first-time visitors are higher.
And that becomes part of customer service, right? I mean, at the end of the day, your staff is, hey, you know, is this your first time here? And then you're making recommendations, all those things that help, you know, make this loyal guest and keep them coming back again and again. You know, it becomes really, really, that interaction becomes even more important, in my opinion, when you're dealing with the first-time guest. Because I know, you know, I go somewhere, and, you know, me, I like my craft beer, so, oh, I go to one brewery, hey, what's your favorite brewery if you're not here, you know, and then you go to that one. So that's the way, you know, you have those experiences. And I think, you know, it's really important that when we talk about customer service training, it's not just taking care of the guests, but it's being knowledgeable about the destination too, so that you can make sure that they have this amazing experience. Because you know, the best thing we can do, you know, we want to get them to explore more of the area, but we also want them to come back because they had something, they got to see something they didn't know they were going to get to see.
Pam, did you have, Pam, you had something?
Oh, it was just a little addition to what Tim said about Sarasota. Not only have they, built new hotel rooms and stuff, the airport has become very aggressive. And I see Ben and Carol here. It's good to see you guys. Thanks. Anyway, so the airport has gotten very aggressive in bringing new flights in, and more so than ever. I watch that all the time because I go to their Port Authority meetings as well, and it's very interesting to see that dynamic that they're really marketing to our visitors.
And Rob, to add a little, sorry, I ever forget who said this about price. You said it about price in other areas. You look at a place like Key West, Rob, that number just keeps getting bigger every month. I'm like, how the heck can that number get any bigger, right? Very aspirational destination, but they're getting big, big numbers. But it's also pricing some people out so that they do explore other opportunities. So I think we are absolutely benefiting from price increases in other areas. And believe me, Brian will tell you, we definitely do our best to target people who are searching for a Florida vacation, not necessarily specifically just a Lee County vacation. So,
Jay, do you have something?
I had a question on the length of stay. If I read it correct, the length of stay is down from last year?
I would need to, if I recall, it's fairly flat or close to it.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was a result of the higher rate or if it's a result of availability or it's just...
That isn't anything that we can tell directly from this. Again, just in terms of there's only so many questions we can ask. So I could speculate, and I'm sure that could be part of it. But there also isn't enough data within here for me to answer that definitively.
And I had one other question on the data and how you ask about attractions. You had a list, we didn't see it today, but in your full report, there's a list of attractions and where people visit.
Yeah.
You give them a list and have them pick, or is that an open-ended question?
Generally asked, they're kind of asked where they've been, so they'll go through that, and then they basically they have a full list that they can.
I just had noticed there was nothing in Cape Coral on that list that we saw, and I didn't know if it was open-ended and people have the opportunity to put it in and they're not traveling there, or if you're giving a list to pick from and it's not included.
There is a list to pick from. The list, that's one of those things that was a list developed a few years ago, and that's probably something that we can update if there's anything. That's always, if there's anything in the full report that if we need to add some things, we're happy to add it because we want to make sure we're kind of providing a comprehensive view as we can.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else before Joe? Are you done, Joe?
Sure.
Any other questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate that. All right. Sir, that is the end of my report.
Great. Okay, next we have Jeff Milkey, Sports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Council. Today we're going to go through January, February, and March. So we'll go to January. So we hosted 17 events in January, generated a little over 16,000 hotel room nights for $6.7 million of direct visitor spend. We were happy to see Major League Baseball bringing their fantasy camps back. I think between the two of them, they hosted 4 different fantasy camps, which are long length of stay events. Perfect Game came in Martin Luther King weekend. Certainly was the bigger of the two, but 6,000 room nights through Perfect Game. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see that by, if my math is right, by 31 room nights, we had our best January ever. So it was a good start for 2022 for us. So February, we hosted 12 events, generated just under 10,000 room nights, $3.4 million direct visitor spend. Roy Hobbs has his February and into March Sunshine Classic, which is about 5,700 room nights. We had a couple new Florida Youth Soccer events, which is really nice. They're called Commissioner Cups, and they've been gone for 4 or 5 years, so we had the chance to host those at Kelly Road and for some decent room nights. And then in February, and you'll see in March, is kind of ice hockey season, so both at the stadium and at Hertz Arena. A good February for us. Last 3 years have been right in line with each other. And then in March, again, this is usually one of our lowest months, March and August, simply because we don't spend resources chasing sports tourism business in March. It's a tough month to house people in hotels. As you all saw, the ADR is a little rough for sports families, and so we are at 5,500 room nights, $3.1 million in direct visitor spend. Most of that came through Gene Cusick Classic, which is a product that our Lee County Parks and Recreation manages and owns, and again, ice hockey. And with the Gene Cusick Classic, it has certainly recovered a little bit from COVID. But again, they're mostly D3 schools, NCAA D3 schools, both baseball and softball, and they are certainly feel the pressure of the hotel and housing affordability or the rates in our community during March. So, so there you can see again, 2021 was COVID, and we've bounced back a little bit from that. So that is March. A couple things we do have in May 18th through the 25th, we'll host for the 9th time the Florida High School Baseball State Championships at Hammond Stadium. We still have Fort Myers High, Island Coast, and Canterbury are in it. They've all won their games. They're in regional semifinals. Bishop Verot and I think Bonita Springs lost last night, so they're out. So we still have 3 local teams, though, which is great. We just wrapped up supporting the Fine Mark Women's Pro Tennis event down at Bonita Bay. We are 1 week into 7 straight weekends of Florida Bowling Open Championships. We will start here in a few weeks the first responder games. And Tony, you'll remember the first responder games, folks, at your place. And then we are really proud to announce that USA Baseball has chosen Lee County to pick and train their 18 and under World Championship team, which will play in the Worlds later this year. And they will be coming here in August, September, Hammond Stadium to, again, choose their World 18 and under World team and then train prior to the World Championship. So that is my report. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Jeff? Yeah, problem.
Anything on the stadiums that any major construction projects or anything? I know at one point those seemed to be kind of in the news and then they went away. Is there anything that's sort of looming on the off season that is going to have to be addressed, or is that not?
I don't have any. Jesse, is there any updates? Jesse Lavender is here with Lee County Parks and Rec.
Good morning. To answer your question, Rob, we anticipate to rectify the issues on the boardwalk at Hammond Stadium this summer before next spring training. But other than that, it's pretty much business as usual in our normal maintenance projects at each stadium.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Great. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Next we go to the new business. We have approval of the second quarter fiscal 22 budget report. April.
Good morning, everyone. I'm April Bonnet, your fiscal manager. Today I'll be providing an overview of the second quarter budget reports for the VCB operating, beach and shoreline, and the sports development business units. The VCB operating budget report, overall, we're at a 46% spend rate, outside of some administrative nuances that we had causing a few variances in excess of 50%. There wasn't really anything significant to call out. We're running on track with that. The beach and shoreline budget report, the overall spend rate is also pacing at 46% with no notable variances there. And the next slide, we have the sports development budget report. The overall spend rate landed right at 50%. The quarter 2 promotion does include a couple of Jeff's events that actually happened in quarter 1. But other than that, there wasn't anything significant to call out. This concludes the overview of the number crunching on the budget to actual. I'm here to answer any questions. Okay, if there's no questions, can I respectfully request a motion for council to accept the quarter 2 budget report?
So moved. I'll second.
We have a motion by Rob, second by Phil. Any other discussion, questions? Any public comment on the item? Come back to the council. Any objection on the budget? Next will be the beach and shoreline. Nancy?
Good morning. It's good to be here. We today are going to ask the TDC to formalize fiscal year 23 beach and shoreline funding. This application cycle began in January, so we're happy to bring it to a close. I want to thank the TDC members that participated in the beach and shoreline workshop on April 20th. We appreciate all the time that you put into reviewing the many requests. There were 24 this year. So before I ask you to formalize the funding, we need to make legislative findings, which I know is your favorite thing. Before I start, I'm going to have to read each of the 13 projects that need a legislative finding separately, and you'll have to move them, each of them. If you have any questions about legislative findings, our county attorney is here. If not, I'll begin. The first request is the City of Sanibel's beach erosion monitoring request. In order to fund this project with tourist development tax funding, the TDC must make a legislative finding that this project will improve, maintain, or restore the beach and shoreline. Rob?
So moved.
We have a motion, second. Can you take a vote on each one individually?
They can do it as a whole.
Okay. We can do all of them as a whole.
Nancy, if you can just read them all out.
Oh, okay.
And just make one motion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent.
I'd love to. City of Sanibel's Facility Beach Maintenance Project. To fully fund this project, TDC must make a legislative finding that the purchase of the following items show a distinct and direct relationship between expenditure of tourist development tax revenues and the promotion of tourism: a pickup truck with a dump bed, skid steer loader, Z-Track mowers, and John Deere Gator. The next project is the Town of Fort Myers Beach and Shoreline Maintenance Project. To fully fund this project, TDC must make a legislative finding that the purchase of the following items show a distinct and direct relationship between expenditure of tourist development tax revenues and promotion of tourism: replacement of a New Holland tractor, replacement of an F-350 truck, a new bucket truck, 2 utility vehicles, and Moby mats. The next project is Lee County Facilities Beachfront Park Maintenance Request. To fund public parking facilities that serve beach access areas and other beach park facilities, the TDC must make a legislative finding that such expenditures will promote tourism within the county. The next request is from Lovers Key State Park for a Bobcat compact track loader. To fund this project, TDC must make a legislative finding that the purchase of this equipment will improve, maintain, or restore the beach and is primarily related to and promotes tourism. The next request is the Captiva Erosion Prevention District's request for a beach vehicle. To use tourist development funding, TDC must make a legislative finding that this project is primarily related to and promotes tourism. The next request is from the City of Cape Coral, the Yacht Club Beach Shoreline Expansion. The following items may be funded if the TDC makes a legislative finding that they are primarily related to and promote tourism: shade structures, pavilions, and extensive landscaping enhancements with irrigation. The next request is from the City of Sanibel, the changing room rehab at Bowman's Beach Park. Tourist development tax funds may be used for this project if TDC makes a legislative finding that such expenditures promote and are directly related to tourism, and the project will improve, maintain, or restore a beach park facility. The next request is also from the City of Sanibel, Bowman's Beach Park kayak launch replacement. The kayak launch replacement may receive funding if the TDC makes a legislative finding that this project is primarily related to and promotes tourism. The next project is Lee County Facilities Bonita Beach Park improvements. To provide tourist development funding for the enlarged deck around the restroom, TDC must make a legislative finding that this part of the project promotes and is directly related to tourism. Lee County Facilities request for Caloosahatchee Creek's Preserve Boardwalk and Observation Deck. To fund this project, the TDC must make a legislative finding that the boardwalk and observation deck serves as a part of a nature center and that such a project relates to and primarily promotes tourism. The next request is from Lovers Key State Park for an ADA kayak launch. The construction of the ADA kayak launch as a part of a nature center may be an authorized use of tourist development funding if the TDC makes the legislative finding that such a project relates to and primarily promotes tourism. And finally, the Lee County Transit's request for Fort Myers Beach tram service. To fund this project, TDC must make a legislative finding that there is a clear and direct relationship between the promotion of tourism and the particular transportation service being offered.
I would take a motion in a second.
Second.
We have a motion with Pam, a second by Jay. Any other discussion? Any public comment on this item? Come back to the council. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. Next one is attraction and event marketing.
Okay, now that we've done that, we can go ahead and ask for you to formalize the funding allocations for 22 projects totaling $15,769,488 for fiscal year 23. Once you make the recommendation to formalize this, it will go to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval in September.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondered if Nancy could, there's a little bit of confusion from some of our local media in Fort Myers Beach about the renourishment project for Fort Myers Beach. And I know we decided at the workshop to go a different route. Could you take a moment and just explain to the public procedurally what will happen going through the reserve fund for the TDC versus this process and how it works?
Well, I can tell you that while it's listed as ineligible on this sheet, it is not eligible through this process. We've asked for the town to work with Lee County Natural Resources to develop an interlocal agreement. And you'll see the amount allocated to Lee County Natural Resources Beach Renourishment Trust Fund was increased to $5.6 million with the anticipation that Lee County would be asked to assist with your project. As far as procedurally, I'm not involved with that piece of it. I don't know, Tam or Andrea, if you want to elaborate.
Steve is here.
Steve is here, and your manager is quite aware of the procedure, but we'd be happy to advise you, though.
I just think it'd be helpful just to have a brief overview of how it works procedurally. We've had a number of local media have called and asked, how does it work? Why is it on the agenda? Why has it been deemed ineligible? And we talked about this at the workshop a lot. I just thought it might be helpful just to have somebody just kind of walk through it just briefly.
It was a private property, but Steve, you can go ahead.
Good morning, Steve Boutel with Natural Resources. Quite simply, the staff at the town and the county continue to work on developing language for the interlocal agreement. We'll make sure that that covers all of the pertinent policies related to how we've traditionally funded beach projects and that it's legally sufficient, and then that will go to the town council and to the county commission for approval, and that will outline the full suite of funding requests that will be related to that project, including everything from the design and permitting step all the way through the post-construction monitoring. So it'll be a complete package that covers the whole project.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just for context, for history, and I know there's some new faces around the table through this process, about, I don't know, Steve, help me, 15 years ago, round numbers, we had a very large beach renourishment project that needed to be funded in that that fiscal year. And we had, at that time, and it's hard to remember that time back to $10 million for a full year of collection, we were allocating about $3 million of beach and shoreline funds. And the project itself was, I can't remember, Steve, 2.7 or 2.8 million, something like that. And it was, we're not going to be able to do any of these projects. How can we avoid this in the future? And a determination around the table, a recommendation from the TDC was, let's begin having this beach renourishment trust fund. And let's set aside money the way you save to buy a house or to buy a car. We're going to set aside money every year so when we need to buy the car or need to renourish the beach, we have a savings account available that we can then fund the project, and we can still do all the other important projects that need to be funded that year. And so that's how the Beach Renourishment Trust Fund came to be. And so what has been done, Councilman, is the TDC is asking the town of Fort Myers Beach to use that process to fund it rather than full funding from taking away from all the other projects, some of which are, of course, town projects, We just don't want to jeopardize the regular cycle funding by these, large beach renourishment, these large beach renourishment projects. So that's kind of the history of how we got here and why we do it that way, so that we ensure the integrity of the beach and shoreline program, so that the ongoing maintenance and the projects that are critical to our tourism efforts aren't jeopardized because we have a beach renourishment project in a given cycle.
That is very helpful, and I appreciate you publicly just sort of discussing that process, because there was just been some confusion on the island about it, and so this is really helpful. Thank you.
And as I've said, to you and to others, absolutely, that's what these funds are there to do. We want to make that happen. We just don't want to jeopardize the annual funding cycle, because as you see with that list of projects, there are a lot of dependencies on this program, and so we want to make sure that we are able to take care of everything across the board.
Totally understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a comment, as we look at these dollars, I mean, many of us have been on here when we have not been so fortunate to have the amount of funding opportunities that we did this year. And we look at those because been many years that we have not had the capability to fund the way we did this year. So we've got to be very cautious in how we do that. We're lucky this year. Maybe next year we will not have the amount of funding, and these projects might come through at a much different rate. So, we always have to look at those site-specific and say, what's a greater good for everyone? And look at the different avenues that we've all got to look at for our own funding sources.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Nancy? So we had a motion, we had a second. Any public comment on this item? Make sure I call that. Any objections? No objection, motion carries.
Thank you very much. I believe the next item is also mine. I wanted to just give you an update. In December, you nominated a subcommittee to review marketing funding requests. The events marketing cycle closes tomorrow and will be reviewed by this committee after the June TDC meeting, and the attractions marketing application cycle opens tomorrow, and that review will be in July. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind you the current composition of the subcommittee is by Councilman Lappy, Wachulis, Cronin, and Smith. Colleen created a vacancy on the committee, so in case there's anybody else that would like to serve, it's an online review. Events, you might have 8 requests. Attractions marketing, I'm expecting between 30 and 40. So it is a great way to read about all the nonprofit attractions in Lee County that are going after some marketing dollars. We don't have to have a 5th person, but it wanted to.
After careful review and thought, I might be interested.
So that's a nomination of Jay Johnson.
I would make a motion if we need a motion to approve Mr. Johnson on our committee.
I'll totally second that.
You'll need to set aside time on your calendar, Jay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The opportunity.
Thank you, Jay.
You'll learn a lot.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. We'll go for council information. I just want to share, some people here yesterday were not, yesterday the FRLA hosted a great golf event yesterday. I participated in it. Jay was there helping out, putting that together, and I know Holly Cousin was there playing. There's a bunch of people there playing. I don't think Lois, I don't think she's here today, but we had a great event yesterday. Great turnout on Sanibel yesterday at the Dunes, so great organization, so we had a great turnout. Sammy was there. I don't think he's here this morning. You were there. How you doing? So we had a great turnout. Had a good day. It was a beautiful day on Sanibel. I felt like I was on vacation, but it wasn't. So, okay, we'll go to TDC member items. Pamela, do you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
Jay, welcome aboard again. Thanks for volunteering.
Once again, I'm happy to be here. Thank you. I don't have anything else for today.
Bill, do you have anything?
Welcome to Jay. Happy birthday, Tam. For those that have properties on the beach, we just recently went through having the Turtle Conservancy come and do an evaluation of the property. There's grant money out there for turtle lighting. I think we've got about $100,000 from the grant funding, so it's just you have to match with the labor to put it in. It's money that's set aside from Deepwater Horizon. It's for improving the turtle lighting. So highly will recommend if anybody wants the contact, I'd be more to pass it on.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Smith?
Welcome, Jay. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you. That's it. Tam, happy birthday. It's got to keep going.
We're not going to let her forget about it, are we? Councilwoman Tate?
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman, Larry? You have anything?
I don't have much to say other than happy birthday. I'll keep piling on for you while we're at it.
Sorry I didn't bring you cake or donuts.
Happy birthday, Tam. Welcome, Jay. Also, I just want to say in City of Bonita, in our downtown, we just had a groundbreaking for our latest project. It'll be the rooftop at Riverside Food Truck Park. They're hoping to open in about 10 months. Hopefully all goes well with the construction. And also just wanted to say congratulations to the Everblades for sweeping the second round of the Kelly Cup playoffs. The tickets go on sale actually 2 minutes ago for the next round. So,
Anything from our speech?
Nothing additional, and aside from happy birthday.
Rob?
Happy birthday to Tam. Welcome, Jay.
Got anything from Captiva or Sandoval?
Yeah, I do. You know, it's one thing to be a volunteer, the volunteer group that we have that sits at the airport in air conditioning and comfort, but we had about 40 of them come out to Tween Waters, and we dragged them around in the heat and showed them the property and all that. And I just want to put a special thanks out to those volunteers to take the time out of their day to come out and view the property and what we have and how things work. It's just, I'm always amazed by what those volunteers do for us when we get the reports every year. So I just want a special thanks to them, and again, happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Tony. And excuse me, sir, if it's okay, just to add a little bit about the volunteers, you know, for those who are maybe listening on TV, if you want to have the volunteers do a FAM at your location, Simone Bear and her team with our visitor services are the ones that you coordinate that through. But the value of having them at your property is inordinate, because when somebody asks them about them, they've seen it with their own eyes and had that experience, and they can truly speak from a point of view of experience.
I told them too, I said, rather than just do on the FAM trip, I said, if you want to come out and spend the day, I said, then you can really experience it. So we'll see if we get them out there.
Thank you. If we have anything else, we'll be adjourned. Thank you. See you next month.
Where's the cake?
Nice.
Cake? 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 Cake?